there's no question that this didn't occur in isolation. This is the end point, the predictable conclusion to 2 years of the complete degradation of our society, the ripping apart of what this country is. And we've warned day after day about what is happening, about the uniqueness of anti-Semitism, but it's not just a casual form of racism that manifests in insults. It drives people insane, it drives people to commit the most inhuman acts. And when we were seeing synagogues burn and people's homes burned and cars set alight, we said then this will end in death. And we knew that it would, because we've seen the story play out of our history time and time again. But I still feel like the government always viewed the battle against anti-Semitism not as the imperative of our time and a matter of security and decency, but as something political, as something costly, as something that if you condemn anti-Semitism here, you have to condemn Islamophobia there lest you offend someone. And it's that sort of moral ambiguity, that sort of weakness fundamentally that I think has allowed this to happen. I don't want to heap the blame on the government. The government didn't cause this, the government didn't do this. The Prime Minister will be as distraught as anybody today, as a human being and as a leader. But we look to our government to do the things that we can't do for ourselves. We can't protect ourselves in a mass way. We look to government for national security, and this has been a catastrophic failure of that. There's no question about it.
The Prime Minister's coming up behind you now. I believe his party's going to be in this area shortly. You get a chance to meet him. Will you tell him that? Is it time for him to take a look at the situation and change?
This is no time to wrap our feelings in niceties and all that. We have to be straight up. We have been for a long time with the Prime Minister. We were frank with him all the way through about the failings of his government, about the failings of his key ministers, from the Foreign Minister to the Education Minister, the things they've said which have exacerbated this, have made it worse, have created grey areas which people have exploited. And we'll make the point to the government again, and no doubt they'll come up with more security funding and higher walls and more cameras and all that, and make our country less secure and more fearful and more anxious. But we're talking about dealing with the root of this problem, understanding the evil of this that abounds in our society now and results in body bags on a beach, and that's what the government has never really come to terms with that with.
How does it feel to have been, like shouting at the top of your lungs for 2 years now about this, to been saying it over and over again, and it still hasn't cut through to the point where we've had a tragedy like this?
I mean, at the moment, all I feel is sorrow and hurt and pain for the people that are dead. I'm thinking about the families in the community. I'm thinking about my own children, who every year we come to this event and I speak and I stand on the stage with my 3 daughters, and I would have been there again last night but for a family bat mitzvah. And last night I had to console my daughter and answer questions about, are we safe? Is it okay? And it's not safe. When you go to the beach and you get slaughtered at a family event, there's nothing safe about this country. And I think we need to be honest about what we're dealing with here.
What do you say to everyone who's afraid right now?
I understand you, and I share that fear. And why wouldn't we be afraid? Why wouldn't we be afraid when for 2 years we've been talking about the need to fight this menace, the need to live proudly as Jews, and people who exemplified that belief and that life are dead now. And of course we'll live on, we'll live their legacy of being proud Jews and proud Australians, and we'll go back to lighting our candles, but I completely understand their fear, and they should be afraid right now.
Alex, how is Evan going, your media advisor?
He's okay. He doesn't like to talk about his own situation. He suffered some wounds and some injuries, but he'll heal. But again, you wonder about the psychological toll of being around that. And Evan and I, aside from being colleagues, he's a dear, dear friend. He's a person I love immensely. And for many years before we worked together, we would come to this event together. I would always see him. And we would stand there and eat jam-filled donuts. And we would always go and speak to Rabbi Schlanger, who's now dead. And you just wonder how people are going to recuperate. They might look fine on the outside, but on the inside, I think they'll be wounded and broken for a long time.
Just last week, you did the walk with the Roosters, and that I actually reported on that, and how important that was to combat anti-Semitism. I mean, it's such a contrast to the tragedy that's unfolded here yesterday.
And it's interesting you mention that, because Rabbi Schlanger greeted us at the first stop of that walk was that synagogue, the synagogue where Rabbi Schlanger was the rabbi. and he spoke to the players and he spoke to the management, and they got a chance to meet him and see the radiant, luminous goodness that was Rabbi Schlanger. And it's extraordinary. You know, we showed the players this local community, that within the heartland of the Roosters lies the Jewish community, and we're a proud part of it. And they were shocked at hearing about what's been happening here, but now they'll be, like everybody, distraught and disbelieving of what's happened in their local area.
And what about the security moving forward around synagogues and around Jewish events? I mean, do you think that the location of Jewish events such as the Shabbat are going to be disclosed in future? I mean, I've been speaking to a lot of rabbis this morning too about this, and it's very common that they don't disclose the location 24 hours at least beforehand, just out of these very fears. I mean, it's just so shocking.
It is. I mean, every year we'd be at this event, and around the perimeter you'd see a kind of casual police presence and communal security, and thoughts would flicker through your mind. You know, it's such an open place and you're so vulnerable, but you just don't think it's going to happen. You don't think it's going to happen because you fundamentally, if you thought it was going to happen, you'd be in a state of paralysis. You wouldn't be able to live. And no one can live with that level of fear and suspicion, but it's well-founded, clearly. You know, as people gathered here with their families, people plotted how to slaughter those families. And you wonder how much further our security can go. You know, the high holidays were a few months ago. Families were walking to synagogue. I walked to synagogue and met Rabbi Schlanger there, as I do every year. And there were roadblocks and barricades and police everywhere. There's nowhere really to ramp up that security. But it's clearly not enough. It's clearly not enough. We're still vulnerable. But I think we have to deal with this in a whole different way in terms of counterterrorism and surveillance and intel. And we have to ask the questions of how was this able to happen without detection? How were people allowed to acquire these guns, plot this crime, and execute it in the devastating way that they did?
And what can you say to your brave Jewish community right now? What's your message?
My message is, I love you, and I bleed with you, and I mourn with you, and we'll go through this together as a people, which is what we do, and we'll sit shiva together, and we'll cry together, and then we'll try to rebuild and live our lives. But I'm not going to lie to them. I've never deluded the community. I've never given them false hope. I've always been straight up with them, and things won't ever be the same. You know, we managed to somehow compartmentalize the horrors and then live our lives proudly as Jews. And again, Rabbi Schlanger exemplified that way of living. But he's dead now, and he won't be replaced, and something has been permanently lost here.